The trail is a metaphor for change. Although hiking, and specifically endurance hiking, is now a big part of my day-to-day, it's not just about exercise. It's about transformation. Each step is a movement towards clarity, purpose, and identity. But movement is one thing, sharing insights gained is another. As a U.S. Marine veteran, I created this space to help other veterans gain clarity, purpose, and identity. Let's walk this path together. This is Trail to Transformation.
Most people aren't broken, they're just dysregulated. Chronic stress, pain, anxiety, and burnout aren't mindset failures. They're nervous systems stuck in survival. I'm Leland Holgate, combat veteran and neuroscientist, and I created the Welcome Home Method to help people rewire their nervous systems with breath. And to go deeper, visit thewillfulwarrior.com.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me. My name is Dr. Keith McNeil, and this is Trail to Transformation. Thank you all for joining us in conversation. Dr. Tina, hi.
Hello, Dr. Keith. How are you doing? It's been a while.
It has been a while, and I do appreciate you joining me in conversation. Before we get started, however, I want to give you the opportunity to tell us who you are, please.
I am a retired Army officer. Don't hold that against me. The Marine over there, we'll just let it be. I did birth 2 adult children that served the Navy, so I kind of got a little smidgen of everything going on there. I am a recently retired civil servant. I am a author of a new book called The 5 Widows Club that has become an Amazon bestseller. And I am the founder of Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a nonprofit supporting the bereaved.
Well, that's a lot of stuff to talk about in 24 minutes, so let's go ahead and get started. Yeah, we're on the clock. Let's go ahead and get started then. This all started, your whole path had started many years ago, and I kind of want to start there. With your first husband. Can you talk about that real quick?
Oh my gosh, Mark was a good man. And here I am years later, still honoring his life and the work that I do with Widowhood Real Talk with Tina. Mark and I met on active duty in the military. At first, it wasn't somebody I thought I was going to date, and then I wound up marrying him. We have 2 children that are adults, and unfortunately, his journey in this world ended much earlier than I wanted. And it left me devastated. We were both on active duty when we met in the military. By the time his life ended, we were in our 50s and somewhere living in Pennsylvania and thinking we were about to become empty nesters. And I became an empty nest altogether. Mark passed on a vacation, and both of our children went into the military, left me trying to figure out what life looked like for me now. Sort of like what you mentioned in the starting of your podcast, The Transformation. I would go on long walks trying to get myself out of the house to re-identify what life looked like for me now. And walking is a huge part of how I deal with my grief too.
And actually, just as an aside, on a yearly basis, you do a walk-a-thon type of thing, which I've not yet joined, but I always say, can you join me virtually? Because I walk every day, just about.
You do. Yes, we have. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Talk to us about what that walk is.
It is the first full week of August, and it's called Walk for Love. When people are grieving, they often isolate, they often detach from outside, and they don't exercise. Walk for Love gives us an opportunity that first week of August to ask people to walk 1 mile a day. You may walk it inside, you may walk it outside, you may need a medical device, whatever that looks like for your body movement. But what we ask for people during that week is 1, mention their loved one's first name. So many times they want to say their name out loud, but it feels like it's weird or it's uncomfortable. The second thing is we ask somebody to post on whatever social media platform they're on, hashtag walk for love, hashtag their loved one's names. That often gets people into a new healthy habit. 7 days of doing something could be the jump start to someone saying, I'm going to start walking. I'm going to be better with my health. And it also allows them to see community. They see other people supporting and knowing that they are not alone on this very profound trauma and journey of grief.
So, just as a real quick, when I had my heart attack in October of 2022, I had done some walking previous to that. It was kind of part of my aerobic exercise regimen, but most of my regimen was heavy weightlifting. Since the heart attack, that's actually flipped because my goal is to get out there and find a way to regulate all of me, and so body, mind, spirit. And I found that walking and endurance walking, just like the introduction talked about, was how I found new meaning, purpose, value. And part of that is to hike the Appalachian Trail, but that's not part of this conversation. Your transition, your moment of from who you were to where you are now was because of the death of your husband. And that was the trajectory that you took. We've already talked about him dying. What were the steps after that that you took?
Trying to survive,
Okay.
trying just to live, trying to realize that everything else that was going on in life didn't particularly matter. It was a moment of saying what needed to be done, what did I have the energy to do, and what could wait for later. I'd actually just come from dealing with breast cancer just from the year before and have an emergency hysterectomy, thinking that it was going into uterine or ovarian cancer. And I just had my last procedure in October. Mark passed the following March. I was still just trying to catch my breath with life. So going to work wasn't important. Heck, bathing wasn't important. It was just getting in touch with a mental health professional and understanding how to navigate what was left of my life and still be hopeful that life could have some joy later. And allowing friends and family to support me and to know that I no longer had my husband and how I felt was valid and not to rush myself in this grief process and allow me to feel how I was feeling.
So can we talk about that just a little bit? Because
Yes.
that's a journey within itself, from trying to figure and survive to, I don't want to say getting it all and understanding it all,
Mm,
but healing through that journey.
yes.
Can you tell our audience how you did it?
It was a combination of several different things. And I'm glad you said how I did it because these conversations allow people to hear what someone else did and determine what worked best for them. It was not just one thing. It was a combination of telling my close friends at work that when I'm spiraling, come get me, or I'm going to come for you and we're going to go for a walk because the walls are closing in on me. The other thing came with letting my family and friends know this is hard and I need you. That they were understanding to allow me to share the same story over and over and over again and never say, you told me that last week. It was the idea knowing that I spent a lot of time learning how to be a soldier. I spent a lot of time with education. I now needed to spend that same amount of time understanding what it meant to be Mark's widow. That put me in a place of reading a lot of different books. I wasn't ready to say goodbye from Dr. Pamela Blair, Grief in the Body, Grief on the Brain, any book that I could get, the Grief Discovery Handbook, that would give me some insight to how I would feel as a grieving person, a grieving wife. And those things let me know that the pain I was experiencing is natural. The pain that I was experiencing is real. It's not something made up in my mind. That didn't make it go away, but it put me in a place of understanding. And understanding gave me power to feel like I had a better concept of what I was enduring. And also, more importantly, my faith in God, my relationship with God, and being able to guide me and direct me and to trust God that we all have an endpoint in this world, and that was Mark's endpoint. And to be able to understand what would life look like for me later was just me learning how to live and understand that my journey still continued.
Listening to you now and the conversations that we've had over the past year or so, um, time is involved. Many people want the pain to stop. This it's overwhelming or whatever that is. They simply want it to stop. They want to stop crying. They want to stop feeling empty. But that's not the case, and it definitely wasn't the case for you. Can you talk about how time affects the healing, the journey?
That's a good question because oftentimes people will be told time heals all wounds. Just give it a little bit of time, you'll feel better. I don't agree with that concept because if you do nothing during 2, 3 years, you'll find yourself right where you were in the beginning. It is not the elapsing of time that makes this change, it's what you do during that time. Case in point, if my finger was severed and I didn't do anything about it and I just said in time my finger was going to get better, people, right, you go like, that makes no sense. Like, that's going to get infected. It's going to have all these different, you just, ugh. The profound trauma in our brain, unfortunately, is not something that's outwardly seen. So we diminish the impact of what we're going through. But if you read a book called Grieving the Brain, you'll see that the profound trauma that you're experiencing is more devastating than this finger being severed. And our choice not to do something about it will leave us devastating. So if you maybe you got fired, maybe you have a health challenge. Grief is not always just surrounded around the death of a loved one. But if you do nothing and you detach yourself from the world, you isolate, you blame the universe or God for why this has happened, or you start trying to be so busy that you're not going to let grief get you, you'll find yourself stuck, which is actually interesting. You asked that. I have my signature program where grief gets stuck, the 5 survival patterns that I talk about. 5 things that people do trying to survive. But once it's reached its goal of what is done for you and you've done it too long, now it's making you stuck. Case in point, when my husband passed, I retreated into my home. I needed to baseline what was going on. I needed to process that. Now, if I would have done that for 6 years, went to work, came home and isolated, what was a survival technique has now detached me from people that love me, that could have supported me and encouraged me. So it's finding that balance of what behavior is necessary and what is now not becoming beneficial.
I want to do a jump back and then I want to do a jump forward because there's still other things that you're currently doing that we do need to talk about. But I want to do a jump back in saying you specifically identified as somebody's grieving widow. Like, I'm Mark's grieving widow. That's paraphrased, but you identified as that. How important, and you talk about it even in your LinkedIn content and your other content, that you're still this widow. Can you talk about the identity there? And if I'm stumbling over my words, forgive me. Um, but it comes out repeatedly when you do talk. So can you talk about that?
Thank you for that question. It's important. Sometimes people think, well, oh, she got remarried. She's over that. He is still dead. He is no
Amen.
longer here. My husband and I were together for 32 years, married for 29. Even though I remarried, I still carry his last name. Our children still exist. Our daughter got married. He was not there. Our son turned 25. He was not there. My husband was amazing. And I'm not just saying this because he's no longer living and trying to, but his funeral, there were people there I never met or knew. And I mean, the church was packed. People were outside. And my husband was a very quiet guy. He was not the loudest voice in the room. But he was amazing. And for someone to tell me I'm not his widow, I was like, then make him come back to life because I feel like people say, oh, because we don't like to see people in pain. We don't like to see people uncomfortable, and we're always trying to just brush it by. And someone said, "Well, you're not a widow anymore." Tell me why I'm not. Because he is no longer breathing. And I think that's important for people to realize the duality of, have I found love again with a new husband? Yes. Do I still miss my late husband? Absolutely. His birthday, our wedding anniversary, things that happen with our children. Those are pinnacle experiences that I cannot change. Sometimes it may be me pulling out all the photo albums. Sometimes it may be the children and I getting together. One time my son and I have a Jeep Wrangler, and we just did a lot of murals and just took pictures and hung out for his dad's birthday and just shared stories. I think it's disrespectful for someone to tell a widow that they are no longer a widow because their spouse is no longer here. They grieve that person, whether the relationship was good or it was bad. If it was bad, it was the hopes unfulfilled and things that didn't happen. So I take that personally. Thank you for noticing that.
Well, and the reason I brought it up is because people want, sometimes they just want a chapter of their life to end. Like it, it ends, it's done, it's gone, it's over. And that removes their responsibility from grieving or healing. And I just wanted you to be able to speak to that and so eloquently as you did, as you typically do. Let's move forward.
I will say
You,
this though,
go
Keith.
ahead. Go ahead.
When someone gets a divorce, that's what they're probably looking for. Scorch the ground, don't want to see them anymore, and be gone. I didn't want him to die. That wasn't, even if someone was terminally ill, they may have wanted their loved one to stop suffering, but they wanted that to continue. I love Mark. We are now going on 10 years later. His death did not just end my love for him, it ended his existence in this world. And I think people do need to understand, you just don't move on. Like 32 years my life with him, I'm going to say his name, get uncomfortable and comfortable with that, because his life still matters to me.
And you say his name a lot. So
I do.
you do. What are you doing now? Speaking of all the things that you do, you have a podcast. You've just written a book, which I'm going to be at a book signing tomorrow.
Yes.
But I don't want to confuse anybody we're recording this on Monday and it'll air well past the book signing. Give us some heads up as to what's going on in your life now and tell me about this book that I've yet to read.
So my first book is called The Five Widows Club. It is a fictional novel of five women, lost love, resilience, and how they re-identify and create their new lives. Because when your spouse passes, you're no longer the person you were. And these five women come together in a grief support group and goes across 5 years, their life changing, different integral experiences that they have. One of the things that Mark and I used to do in Pennsylvania, we used to have an annual bonfire at our house, and we would have 50 to 100 people coming through. Oh, it was amazing. When we shut that down, people were devastated. So I brought that fire into this book, and there are different points that they have a bonfire in this process. And I won't share more about that, but the five women are amazing. As you mentioned, I've been podcasting going on 4 years now. Also do a TikTok live every Monday evening at 7 p.m. and talk to different people. At this point, thousands of people. Sometimes we'll have about 400 people in a live on TikTok. These are grieving people sharing. So being able to take snippets of all those people and create the profile for these five women is what I've been able to do.
So a podcast, a TikTok, an annual walk, now a book. I've got to ask, and forgive me if I'm overstepping boundaries, but are you doing too much? Like, are you trying to fill a void here? Like,
No,
no?
not at all.
Talk to me about that.
And I did not start this until, I want to say, 5 years into my grief. If I would have done that early on, I would have felt like, Tina, are you trying to avoid what's happened? I have fully immersed into this. This literally is nothing that I would have been like, oh, I want to do this. And I thank you for the question. And the way this was initiated, a friend, my current husband's cousin passed away. And his widow posted on social media that it was his birthday. And I reached out to her. We had a very long conversation, way past my normal bedtime. And at the end of the call, I could hear God speaking into my soul. What are you going to do when the next person needs to talk? And it's like 1 o'clock. I was like, I am not taking a call. And God was like, what about the next person that needs to feel like they're not alone? Hence became the birthing of the podcast, to have very organic conversations that in the privacy of their home they could listen to a conversation and know that they weren't alone. Also, how Children Widowhood Secret Santa came about. Two widows approaching me and saying, we would like to create a program that children who have lost one or both of their parents could be able to receive Christmas gifts. I worked with them on how to write up a proposal to the board of Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, which is a registered 501c3. The board approved it. Those two widows manage it. I just kind of give them some insight. I am not a micromanager. I want to have an opportunity where people bring their amazing ideas to support the widowhood and help champion them in doing that. The book was a natural outpouring of the things that I've done. And literally today, I am about to box up 15 books for a widow's retreat in Oregon that ordered books for their retreat, providing them book club guide conversations. We have a one sheet version and then an expanded version, and sending that out to them. The book signing that I had yesterday, so many people coming up and sharing that they're widows and they had not seen a book like this, and to be able to identify. So no, because I retired from my full time job. I take naps in the afternoon like nobody's business, and learning just how to relax and enjoy my life.
As we close off this conversation, a lot of uh, the current conversation has been about helping, I'm assuming, women deal with grief. What about men? How do men? And we've only got about 2 minutes, but can you speak real quickly about
I
how
can.
you help men deal with grief?
Actually, on my TikTok live last week, we had a men's only panel discussing mental health and grief for men. We also have a men's only grief support group that meets the second Thursday of every month, that is hosted by Mr. James Price, who is a widower. And you can find that information under events on our website. So thank you for bringing that up, because men do get lost in that process. And men need spaces where women are not there, so they can have the freedom to be transparent, to not have to have this exterior rough that I'm, and be able to just be what they are. And so we created spaces for them. Thank you for mentioning that.
Well, what's the key when men come to these groups and talk to you? What's the primary issue, if there is one, that they're dealing with? And I ask that because we do have men that actually watch and listen to this conversation or these conversations on Treasure Transformation, and I want to give them a space. If it's only to contact you, what connect with them? How do they open up?
On the men's panel that we had last week, there were 8 men, and one of the primary things that they spoke about, two things. One, that when they become transparent and vulnerable, that someone used that against them and it caused them to shut down and not want to share. And I think people need to understand that men, they have feelings just like women. But the second thing is that they have been trained or taught their entire life that they're not supposed to share those feelings. So then when they do become vulnerable, the person is shocked that supposedly wanted to see all these feelings, and then they don't respond in a positive way. So the idea of now having to retrain or change the thoughts that they were taught from a little boy, and telling them that, you scuff yourself, get up, don't cry, that's being a weak, and all these other things that you've been told for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And now you experience profound trauma, and all these emotions are rising up, but you've been told something else, and you're struggling internally on how to process this versus what these things you've been taught properly.
Dr. Tina, thank you so much for this conversation and for everything that you're doing. And even though it's not going to be, I'm going to see you at the book signing. For everybody else, I'll see you on the trail. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Trail to Transformation TV. To support these conversations or to support the foundation, I would ask that you go to givebutter.com/T3missionorg. That's the letter T, the number 3, MISSIONORG. Or go directly to our website at t3mission.org and click the donate button. Or just scan the QR code as you see it on the screen. And as always, I will see you on the trail.